You're watching Capital City Sunday.
It's now been 2 months since the 2024 presidential election, and Wisconsin is now shifting its focus to a race in April that could change the ideology of the state Supreme Court. On April 1st, Dane County Circuit Court Judge Susan Crawford will face off against Waukesha County Circuit Court Judge and former Republican Attorney General of Wisconsin, Brad Schimmel. As of now, no other candidates have entered the race. The two are vying for liberal-leaning Justice Ann Walsh Bradley's seat. Currently, the court's longest-serving justice, Bradley is not seeking re-election. Her term ends on July 31st of this year. Bradley's decision comes just 2 years after Justice Janet Protasiewicz was elected in a race garnering national attention with more than $50 million raised. Protasiewicz's addition to the court created a 4-3 liberal majority for the first time in nearly 15 years. The matchup between Judges Crawford and Schimmel is expected to be another highly contested race. The first day for candidates to circulate nomination papers was December 1st, and those signatures are due to the Wisconsin Elections Commission on Tuesday. Candidates need at least 2,000 signatures to qualify for the April election. On Monday, Crawford submitted 8,000 signatures to the commission. It approved 4,000 of those as valid signatures. In a statement to 27 News, Crawford said it's more important than ever to have a Wisconsin Supreme Court that protects our freedoms and applies the law fairly and equally. That's why I'm running. I'm grateful to have the support of so many Wisconsinites who are already standing with us in this fight. The commission approved more than 3,800 of Schimmel's submitted signatures. Schimmel's campaign says he was not available for comment. The commission will take a final vote on any challenges to those submissions at its ballot access meeting on January 14th. Joining me now is former Wisconsin Supreme Court Justice Janine Geske. Janine, thank you so much for your time.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for having me.
This year's race for the Wisconsin Supreme Court could potentially change the ideology of the court. What are the implications of this race?
Well, the last race we had, which I think most people remember, was a $50 million race and clearly fought along partisan lines, even though this is a nonpartisan race. And these are nonpartisan candidates, which I'll talk about in a little while. But it is lining up to be the same kind of race. If you look at the language of both the candidates on their websites or listen to what they're saying, they're very much leaning politically either to the right or to the left. And so I think that Democrats and Republicans, the parties, will wind up getting very involved in this race because the argument is that there is a 4-3 split that's more progressive at this point, and that if Brad Schimmel can get elected, it will move to the right. So it's going to be very political.
And Janine, that's a great segue into my next question. With liberal Justice Ann Walsh Bradley retiring while the court, as you just stated, is considered to be nonpartisan, how are these two candidates appealing to voters as they campaign ahead of April?
Well, there are a couple of signs that it's going to be very much the same kind of race. First of all, I particularly dislike justices being called liberal or conservative, and I know we do that in the campaigns, but I think that's taken away from the independence of the judiciary. That being said, Justice Ann Walsh Bradley, along with 3 other justices that sort of make up what people describe as the liberal coalition, have endorsed Susan Crawford. And Brad Schimmel, who's been a Republican, is very much have conservatives on his side, is arguing that he's trying to restore the court. And so it will swing the court, at least in the perception of the public, and I think probably practically on some political issues.
You spoke earlier about the Wisconsin Supreme Court race in 2023. What were some of the controversies we saw during Justice Janet Protasiewicz's campaign against former state Supreme Court Justice Dan Kelly? And could we see a similar approach for these two candidates?
Well, there were 2 major issues that were discussed in their TV ads and certainly by people, political operatives, and that was the issue of what Wisconsin would do on the issue of abortion, and secondly, what Wisconsin would do on the issue of the map drawing or gerrymandering, as it's called. the justices indicated that they had not pre-decided the case and they weren't saying where they were going to vote, but obviously either leaned on their past history or Janet Protasiewicz case talked about what her values were versus how she would vote. I think that the abortion issue may come up again because although there is a case pending before the court, it will probably be decided before Justice Bradley leaves, that may not put the end of the issue. And so I suspect abortion, and these two candidates clearly are on opposite sides of that issue politically. I think the other kinds of issues, maybe the map drawing, I don't know whether the conservatives would go back there one more time and do something. There are lots of other issues that are being developed because of political related cases. And I suspect that we will see and hear a lot. The court did not decide as many cases this past year as it has historically, but a great number of them were involving political issues.
As you stated, some of the issues we saw the court consider with the addition of Justice Janet Protasiewicz on the bench were Abortion Redistricting Act 10. Depending on whether Schimmel or Crawford is appointed to the court, how could this impact the issues the court is likely to consider in the near future?
Well, I always like to predict. I tell people I served on that court and I know the justices well, and I can be just as wrong as others. That being said, if we kind of look at through the partisan lens that many people are looking at through, I think that, technically the map drawing, redistricting is done. But of course, the Republicans will say it was done before Justice Protasiewicz was elected, and then they switched it. So whether they do something on that or not before, I don't know. The issue of Act 10 is something that's just developing early in the courts. It's at the lowest court level at this point, and it'll take a while to get to the Supreme Court, but it will get there. And so that's going to be an issue. And I know that Brad Schimmel has in part argued that the courts could cost it billions, as has Scott Walker. And so that's what they're pointing to on that particular case. The abortion case is the constitutionality or the interpretation of a statute from, I think, 1848 or 1849. And the trial court has ruled it does not apply to abortions. If the court agrees with that ruling, that doesn't mean that the court can't do other things on abortion down the road. So I suspect that issue will return to the court in the next year or two.
Janine, you said this earlier in the conversation about the Wisconsin Supreme Court considering the least amount of cases this year. Can you explain why that is, or what contributed to their decision on what cases were brought forward to the court?
Well, there are multiple explanations. It may be, and I think it's true, that less parties are asking the court to decide it, and we can all guess why that is. A lot of the court's activity was directed not only at those politically sensitive cases, but also on pre-hearing orders and amicus curiae and all these things that take up time of the court. Other than that, we don't know, because the court often does not write, nor the justices write while a case isn't taken. Once in a while, one of the Justice Hagedorn has done sometimes. Other justices have written, but we really don't know. But the numbers were really low compared to all other years.
Former Wisconsin Supreme Court Justice Janine Geske. Janine, thank you so much again for joining us.
You're welcome.